All right, here we go. Devs are definitely being for real this time. Let's see this one. Here we go. I decided to launch my blog with a hopeful message. Developers are finally going extinct for this time. Pack it up, learn to prompt, and surrender your terminal to the glorious AI overlords. The post is called The Reoccurring Cycle Developer Replacement Hype. I'm willing to look at this. Technological trigger, trial of disillusionment, slope of enlightenment, productivity plateau. Yes, okay, this all looks really real. All right, from no code to AI assisted, every few years a shiny new technology emerges that promises to make software developers obsolete. The headlines follow a predictable pattern, the end of coding. Anyone can build apps now. Or my personal favorite, why your 5-year-old will be a programmer before learning to read. No one actually wrote that, right? Coding for 5-year-olds. Best ways to start. What? Okay, well, actually, that search made me more disappointed. I was hoping just to see that article and be like, people are insane. But instead, I saw just real articles being like, now to do it. Okay, that just makes me upset. Executives get excited. The consultants circle like sharks. PowerPoint decks multiply, budgets shift, and then reality sets in. What actually happens isn't replacement, it's transformation. Technologies that promise to eliminate the need for technical expertise end up creating entirely new specializations, often at higher salary points than before. The no-code movement didn't eliminate developers. It created no-code specialists and back-end integrators. The cloud, I mean, that's literally SAP, right? Isn't that like Salesforce? Like Salesforce is its own world that exists outside of everybody else. The no-code thing is so true, it hurts. All right, the cloud didn't eliminate system administrators. It transformed them into DevOps engineers at double the salary. It's actually true. There's kind of a funny part to this because I remember when I was a young man working at some of these earlier web startups, there was always the one guy, right? His name was always like the build master or something along those lines. And it was always this guy who deeply knew Windows IIS and Linux. For whatever reason, knew them both. Always hated Windows IIS. Can't blame the guy. And he would go off and, no, not the code master, the build master. Is build master, webmaster, sometimes the sysadmin is what you'd see them in flavors of. And they'd always be convincing you of the craziest things. Always very early into virtual environments, very early into, what was it, Vagrant? You know, super excited about stuff I know IIS. I'm sorry I'm even saying this. Build Cosby. Yeah, they'd be normally known as Build Cosby. And I remember like we always had one of those guys and they would just run all of our basic cloud compute. And then at some point it all went to the Amazons. And then somehow we now have DevOps engineers instead. Oh, you knew Paul too? Yeah, we all knew Paul. They knew about Docker first too. Oh yeah, he was telling me about Docker really early on. I was hearing all about containers in like 2012, 2011, and I have no idea what they were. And I was just like, I don't even know what's happening here. I didn't even understand Linux at all at that point. Now we Terraform bros. Now you just Terraform bros, which is totally cool. Now we're witnessing the same pattern with AI-assisted development. The promise AI will write all your code is evolving into the reality that we need engineers who can effectively orchestrate AI systems, which essentially the same engineers, but now with new skills and higher salary expectations. Is that true? I wonder if that's true, because in my brain, if you orchestrate a bunch of AI coding assistants, you fundamentally will be at a lower bracket just because of what you produce, whereas people producing the AI coding assistants seem to be at higher brackets, right? Like if you can produce a better AI tool today, you will have YC just upduting you so hard, and they will just try to hand you millions of dollars right now, like today. Just today, like you do that, you got $1 million. And it's something that I forget, and it's something that I'm extremely a victim of just not remembering. There's a huge portion of development that is just churning out content for shops that are not technical, right? They're just simply contractors. They have an entire set of tools developed around creating a project, getting things out, designers that pipe in stuff, and they just make crud apps as fast as possible. You can imagine, right? Like you can imagine that there's an entire set of people that these AI tools, like genuinely make them go so much faster because they don't care about technical debt, right? Like they don't. You don't have to care about technical debt because all you have to do is you just have to produce X. There's no longer term vision. It's just produce X. That's it. Move on to the next like single function setup website, and that's that. And so it's just like boom. Boom, boom. So the faster that process goes, the better, right? That means more business that the marketing site can get. I think this is where a lot of the miscommunication around these tools happens, is that there's entire groups of people that stand up these little solo projects that have no need to be maintained longer than, whatever, some short period of time. And so then AI is this like just giant multiplier. But there's something deeper happening with this particular transformation. Unlike previous technological shifts that primarily changed how we implement solutions, AI-assisted development is highlighting a fundamental truth about software engineering that has always existed but is now impossible to ignore. The most valuable skill in software isn't writing code, it's architecting systems. I think it's kind of more of a macro game. I think there's more to that statement than they're obviously making, which I'm going to hopefully, I don't know, maybe I'll say, because the problem with this whole it's about just architecting. There's several ways in which people think about architecture, right? There's the very up top boxes and arrows. That's like, hey, I need to be able to use these services to chain together these functionalities. Just imagine every last person using Lambdas to control their entire architecture, right? They have this flowing into that, flowing into this, flowing into that, right? You've seen this 1,000 times. Okay. Fantastic. This is one version of it, but there's also the version where when you write code, you can produce code fast enough that it actually has a nice enough API that it can stick around for a while. It's not too general. It's not too specific. It's just it's like that Goldilocks territory where you're like, this is really, really nice. And now I can use this and run with this for quite some time. And this is like more like a micro specific architecture thing, which I think a lot of people don't value enough. And I think this is where the AI gets kind of interesting because AI's whole approach is that you can just throw this away, right? You can throw it away and you can just rewrite it into a new form because now writing code is cheap. I would argue that this isn't cheap, right? I think this is cheap in small projects because in small projects, you don't have, You just don't have a lot of risk in rewriting some portion of your code. Because all the bugs that could happen, you'll be able to hopefully stamp out the end, or the refactor wave that happens, that kind of waves throughout your program, is smaller. But as it gets larger, and as we get AI's more responsibility just to do these large set refactors that go, okay, refactor, where's all the breaking things? Refactor on top of that, refactor on top of that, refactor on top of that, and kind of does that wave refactoring to just do these really cheap changes. I think what we're going to see is just the great enshittification. I am so positive the enshittification is coming, and it's going to be larger than it ever has been. Because right now, it has been pretty awful with a lot of websites. I've noticed that I am running more and more into just websites that just have these really annoying bugs constantly, like everywhere. And they're small. They're not like deal breakers, but they're just annoying enough that they're just everywhere all the time. Like, I hate the fact that every third refresh on Twitter, it just doesn't work. That's annoying. And you see this quite frequently where it's just like, hey, does this work? No, this doesn't work because for whatever reason, it's just not going to work and we're going to just have to deal with the fallout, right? It's just getting annoying at this point. And so I do think that the most valuable skill is somewhere in the middle of all this. There's some world that exists where it's going to be where it's putting together systems, being able to talk with other people, and being able to make code that isn't shitty in the smallest category. This is the valid one. You need to be practical, you need to be able to be theoretical, and you need to be able to communicate with people. As we'll see, that's the one skill AI isn't close to replacing. The endless carousel of replacement promises. How many times have we, ridden this merry-go-round? Let's count the rotations. No code, low code. Yep, remember when the drag and drop interfaces were going to let business users build their own applications? The promise was clear. Why hire expensive developers when anyone can build an app? This was a disaster. What actually happened, these tools created a new class of problems. Someone still needed to design the data models, underpin those shiny interfaces, integrate the existing system databases, handle the edge cases. The visual tools couldn't address, maintain, and upgrade the requirements evolved. The result wasn't fewer developers. It was the birth of no-code specialists who understood both the business domain and the technical limitations of these platforms. And guess what? They commanded higher salaries than the developers they supposedly replaced. He should have started with COBOL. COBOL actually is a great example of COBOL. That's actually such a good call out. COBOL was this idea that programming should be near English. I mean, that's literally why programming ended with a period in COBOL, is because you should be able to write out what appeared to be English. That's unironically a requirement, which is kind of hard to, I think it's really hard to think about that. I think that's real. I don't feel like Python was that. I don't feel like Python or JavaScript or Lua was like that. I feel like they understood their place, whereas COBOL actually tried to be something different. Cloud revolution, move to the cloud and you can fire your ops team. This one gets me every time, as if infrastructure would somehow manage itself once it was someone else's server. The cloud didn't eliminate the need for systems expertise. It just changed what that expertise looked like. And you could actually probably add on top of this, if they did this, you could probably add on top, I don't know if he addresses this, but the whole serverless revolution. Not just that somebody else manages your server, which is, by the way, really nice. Amazon just always keeps things up and running. But on top of that the whole serverless one, you don't even need to think about servers. How many times do you see per week someone tweeting, I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't cache whatever, and now I have a $100,000 bill? It's like, it's the same learning every single time. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, and now I'm absolutely screwed. Yeah, I know. Oh, for whatever reason, your site has like 1.5 second startups constantly. Crazy. It's crazy that keeps happening. It's almost like you should learn some things about how this works. Serverless is actually server more. Serverless just means you have to think about servers also. That's it. The system admins weren't eliminated. They were born as DevOps engineers with fancy new job titles and substantially higher compensation packages. The work didn't disappear. It evolved into infrastructure as codes, automated deployment pipelines, and distributed system management. And the worst part is that most people's projects never see more than like 1,000 users a month. Do we have all of this intensity over virtual almost nothing? As I noted in my LinkedIn post about microservices, I've watched teams spend months decomposing perfectly functional systems into microservices only to discover they traded one set of problems for a more expensive set. Dude, that is so true. But I still remember there's this very important interaction I had with a friend who finally admitted to me that this was unironic, that they had more microservices than users. And he finally was just like, I hate this. What have I done to my life? I've actually created so many different things I have to launch just to accomplish something I could have just done, right? Like, I could have just built one thing. Instead, I have like 900 things all tied together through implicit contracts instead of just like a library. All praise the modular monolith. Honestly, it doesn't even have to be a well thought through monolith. You know how easy it is just to have a library and then you just use that library to do your data storage, and then sometime later you can come back and change it if it ever needs it? I had a project I was competing with at Meta where they had less users than people working on the project. That means the people who built it didn't even click on it. Feels good. Dude, so good. Google Plus? Yeah, it's Google Plus. The offshore development wave. Why pay local developers when you can get the same work done for a fraction of the cost overseas? The promise of dramatic cost savings quickly collided with the reality of communication challenges, quality issues, and the discovery that effective software development requires deep contextual knowledge and continuous collaboration. I don't know how this one wasn't seen. I love my wife, but we fight from time to time, and I am completely motivated to communicate the best I can possibly communicate with her. And I am motivated outside of everything else. So imagine now that you're communicating with people that you're not going to be able to have like all sorts of cultural idioms you don't understand versus they don't understand yours. There's all sorts of different ideas that you have in your head that are just going to be, when you say the same words, mean or create different pictures. Like there's just so much craziness when it comes to actual communication. Nuts to think that this was going to be a pure trade-off, right? What emerges instead was a more nuanced approach. Distributed teams with clear ownership boundaries, stronger architecture practices, and surprised higher total cost than the initial projected. Yep, AI coding assistant revolution. Now we have the AI promising to write code for us. Just describe what you want, and AI will generate it. Can anybody describe what they want? Can anybody describe what they want accurately? Even when you can describe what you want accurately, you still aren't describing what you want accurately because there's so many underlying assumptions you're making. Code is the most accurate. Code has always been the most accurate. Code is the reflected intentions of the person. AI generates a plausible looking code that often fails in subtle ways. Senior engineers spend significant time verifying the correct AI output. The vibe coding phenomenon means experienced developers exact more value than novices. I don't know if that's true about vibe coding. Extract. I honestly have no idea if that's true or not. I think it's true in the sense that part of vibe coding is you need to be able to vibe tell them what to do, and to be able to use the right words in the right place probably means you get a different type of separation of code, right? Because like if you have no idea then yeah. Okay, systems built entirely with AI assistance often lack coherent architecture. Often. I love the word often included here. Like is that really a thing? Is often, no, this is a filler word. There is no often. It is. The pattern is clear. In each case, the technology didn't replace the skill. It elevated it to a higher level of abstraction. The pattern is almost formulaic at this point. New technology promises to replace technical expertise. Early adopters discover the hidden complexities. The role transforms rather than disappears. Salaries increase as the skill becomes more specialized. Rinse and repeat with the next revolutionary technology. But there's something different about this current wave of AI tools, something that highlights a truth that has been operating in the background all along. Let's see, the orchestra analogy, why we need conductors, not just musicians. To understand what's happening with AI in software development, I want to introduce an analogy. Building software is like creating music. Not a solo performer, but as an orchestra. In this analogy, individual developers are like skilled musicians who can play their instruments beautifully. Technologies and frameworks are like the instruments themselves. Programming languages are the musical notation. Okay, stretching a little bit with this analogy, AI coding assistants are like the extraordinarily talented session musicians who can play any part perfectly, but only once they know what to play. But you just said that they often lack architecture and all that. A little too high praise here. A little too high praise there. What AI assistants can do is they can make a melody that sounds like it should be there, but you have to still adjust it no matter what, right? But here's the critical question. Who decides what music should be played? Who ensures all these talented musicians create harmony rather than the cacophony? Obviously, product managers, right? Product managers. Can we all agree? Like, that's why we have product managers. They're there to make your life happy because you, the stupid developer, doesn't know what you want to build. So you have people who know what they want to build. Okay? They're called product managers. That's the conductor, commonly called a product manager. The architect who understands not just how individual parts sound, but how they must work together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. I always call that also the CEO, the drive-by CEOing. Who didn't love drive-by CEOing? And really, this can be drive-by bossing of any kind, where they just boss man walks by and goes, hey, we should do this differently. And then the worst part is that you do it differently, and then the actual designer / product manager is like, what the hell's going on here? Why are you doing this? And you're just like, that's what I do every time. An orchestra without a conductor. Imagine a world-class orchestra, a virtuoso performings of every instrument, but with no conductor. What happens? They might play the same piece with different tempos. The brass section might overpower the strings at crucial moments. The musicians might interrupt dynamics differently. The overall performance lacks cohesion, even though each individual musician is playing their part perfectly. Actually, I don't know what would happen. I don't know what would happen, but it could be pretty magic, right? Yo-yo ma, yo-yo ma, yo-yo ma. There you go, yo-yo ma. It could be pretty magic. Like, actually, I have no idea what would happen. That's precisely what happens in software projects without strong architectural leadership. AI can generate perfect functions, components, and even entire services, but without architecture to guide how they work together, you don't get a symphony, you get noise. So again, this is what people miss this constantly. This is not true. They don't produce perfect functions or components or any of those things. And this is not me even trying to I'm really not trying to be like Mr. Anti-AI here. It's just that you got to understand, if you don't understand where they fail at, you literally are doomed to repeat stupid stuff. And so a really great example of this is just going to be whenever you see X times X, where is it? Squirt. Do we have squirt in here? Okay, it must be a different one. Look at, what do you see in here? Okay, this is written by an AI. I had an AI, dude, docs equals source. Yeah, I had an AI write this entire project, okay? What do you see in this highlighted region? What you see is a distance function being calculated multiple times, right? A lot of squirting, correct. But notice that even the generation of the distance function is actually done differently. You have dx dy, but then you also have it this way. Notice that there was no even vector created with vector operations. It just simply was, okay, sometimes we're going to do it this way. Sometimes we'll use math.pow and math.squirt. Sometimes we'll do it this way. Sometimes we'll use distance squared, right? Sometimes that's just what happens. Oh, look at this, another squirt. Crazy, right? It's crazy that in a single file, there could be 4 inlined ways to calculate the distance with no vec. And so that's what I'm saying, is that it's not meant, I'm not trying to dunk on AI. I'm just saying that if you think that it produces this stuff, you just produce worse stuff. You're literally hurting yourself more. You you have to be hyper vigilant about everything. Also, the squirt's not necessary. Yes, you could also do a distance squared like comparison, right? Everything can just be distance squared. You just got to learn how to prompt pro. I know everyone says this, and so that's like my big worry that people don't understand is that they don't realize why it's bad. It's not bad because it is doing the correct thing here. I mean, technically, this also wasn't the correct thing. It did this weird sort function, and it actually didn't have to do a sort function. This whole sorting that's going on right here actually did not need to exist because it actually doesn't even use this sorting state as an important part of what it's doing. Like, that's the best part, is that it's updating enemies, but because in every game you need to sort things that you render by Z index before you render them, it did that, but it did it in an update function, which then just ran regular updates. Like, that is just so good. It's so good. Like, this code doesn't even need to exist at all. What conductor actually does. People mistakenly think a conductor just keeps time, human metronome. But any orchestral musician will tell you that the conductor does far more right. It interprets the composer's intent, translates the abstract notes on the page into specific vision, controls balance, ensures no section drowns out another, shapes dynamics, decides where to build intensity and where to create space, unifies interpretation, ensures consistent style and approach across all musicians, adjusts in real time, responds to what actually is happening, not just what's on the page. Now replace the composer's intent with business requirements, balance and resource allocation, and dynamics with performance characteristics, and you'll see exactly what the software architect does. So I think this is just too hyper focused on one aspect of writing code, which is just architecture, right? Again, there's the people that say everything about software is just actually really communications, all you really need to know. It's like, no, that's not it either. People that say, no, it's just about architecture. No, it's not just about that either. People that say it's just about coding. No, it's not just that either. It's actually going to be it is really truly the intersection of all those things. The conductor's ear. The most valuable skill a conductor possesses isn't the ability to wave a baton. It's having the orchestral ear that can detect subtle disharmony in complex sound, identify exactly which section or instrument is out of tune, understand how small adjustments will impact overall performance. In software, what this is called is architectural thinking, detecting subtle design inconsistencies in complex systems. Have you ever worked in a big project? Like, that's literally that's just called the big project, is design inconsistencies. Not a successful one? Yes, a successful one. What are you talking about? That's just called Tuesday. Like, that is every project above a few lines of code just becomes more and more out of place with each other, right? Identify exactly which component is causing performance issues. This is not a simple thing to do. Often there's spread costs because of how you write code that are just not easy to understand, and sometimes a complete burn down and rewrite's the only way you can save true performance from these things. These things are not simple. Understanding how small design decisions will impact overall system behavior. This is called like hotspot performance, which hotspots performance issues can and do happen, and you can obviously take away those ones. Like, sometimes there's just things that perform really bad. Totally reasonable. But at the exact same time, this is not an always thing. You can't train an AI on this kind of ear because it requires something AI fundamentally lacks: holistic judgment based on experience and intuition. An AI can tell you if a code compiles or if it follows a pattern, but it can't. Well, first off, an AI cannot tell you if code compiles. Like, fundamentally, that's not true. Or if it follows a pattern, but it can tell you if architecture feels right for specific business context. Why musicians still need conductors. Even the world's best orchestras filled with the musicians who have played at the same pieces hundreds of times still require conductors. Why? Because someone needs to... Okay, this has to be AI written. There's too many lists here. Every list has a list on it. How is there this many upvotes on this? Guys, I trust you. I trust you on my site to make good judgments, okay? I trust you, but you can't keep telling me that we need this much exact descriptions into how conductors work, okay? Like, do we need that? Look at this. It starts here and just keeps on going. Dude, just really is going, okay? Like, guys, what are you doing to me? All right, let's just go down to, let's try to find some sort of thing. Dude, it's still on this thing. It is still creating lists. Like, you gotta understand that if I'm not upset that an article saying that we should just have AIs write more of the stuff and you should just be the architect to this. I would have to say that you obviously didn't follow much of your own dry principles in this architecture here, okay? Because you repeat yourself consistently. I think the first few lines, I honestly think that the first few little bits are actually really, really good things to point out. Cloud Revolution didn't actually save us from not needing sysadmins. Low code, no code did not prevent people from having to program and program quite a bit to make this happen. Offshore development did not somehow take away all the jobs. In fact, it just more emphasized the need for being local right now. And so I think the same thing's going to happen with AI coding. I think the real takeaway from this article is the following, that anytime something becomes more accessible and what it produces is a liability, costs go up. People just have this weird notion that code is a strategic moat. Code is, in fact, not a strategic moat. Code, almost universally, is a liability. So if you can produce that liability faster with less, even if it's inconsistent in someone's head and it's not beautiful code, it's still the same code. It's still someone writing the same code and they're familiar with it, right? At least if one person writes the code and writes a completely horrible 8,000 line function, at least that person knows the code. When something breaks, they know where the code broke at. Do you know what I mean? At least it's in their head. But this one is like, it's not in your head. You don't know where it breaks at, and it's still a liability. It's a liability. The end. And now we have many more people producing the liability. There will be more. Again.